According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, about 18 of every 10,000 people in the United States have experienced homelessness. That's about 0.2% of the population in the US. And there was once a man, a businessman, that was part of that 0.2%. Have you ever seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness? Yeah, you probably were in tears after watching that movie, which was starred by none other than Will Smith. But did you know that that film is in fact based on a real story? The Pursuit of Happiness is based on a true experience of Chris Gardner, who struggled with homelessness while working his way up to become a stockbroker. While the Rags to Riches story offers a broad overview of Chris Gardner's life, there are many other interesting aspects to his life that you will want to know and that you might be able to apply in your life. Welcome to Untapping Your Potential, where we will share with you motivational stories that will keep you growing and inspire you to take action. Chris Gardner was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1954. He was the lone son in a family of 12 to a single mother. But for years, Chris and his siblings never stayed long with their mother. They were often bounced around between relatives and foster homes, as his mother went missing when he was just a child. No one explained to me well why I was living with this relative or why I was living with that relative. Apparently, my mother was in prison twice, and it was one of those things that no one ever talked about. Chris was even raped by a man who was a member of a gang of thieves in the area, one of the worst experiences in his life. An incident he never discussed because he felt like he had no one to turn to. But one day would stand out at Chris's mind above all others. During Christmas, when he was 16, he was taking a bath when his stepfather barged into the bathroom with a shotgun and threw him out, leaving him on the street, wet and nude on a cold night. After going through all these traumatic experiences, Chris was certain of one thing: he would not become his stepfather. Instead, he chose his mother as an example of strength. I chose to embrace the spirit of my mom, who, despite the fact that she had too many of her own dreams denied, deferred, and destroyed, still instilled in me that I could have dreams. I've wondered so many times, how did my mother know to say to me every day, "Son, you can do or be anything"? That's the greatest gift I ever got in my life. That was my permission to dream. Chris left Wisconsin and joined the United States Navy Medical Corps, and in 1974 he was relocated to San Francisco. Chris later made a woman named Jackie Medina, who became pregnant with his son. To make ends meet, he started working as a research lab assistant. But since his salary was so low, he became a sales representative for a medical equipment firm, although without luxury. It was during this time that Chris encountered a man who in just a matter of minutes changed the course of his life. This man, Chris noticed, was impeccably dressed and drove a red Ferrari. So he asked him, "What do you do? And how do you do it?" He learned that the man's name was Bob Bridges, a stockbroker who earned more than $80,000 each month. And it was then that Chris made the decision to lay his future down in investments. Yes, he knew that he had no education, lacked experience, and didn't have a single connection. But Chris didn't let it prevent him from reaching his dreams. He immediately set out to find an investment firm that would give him a shot as a stockbroker. And not long after, he had managed to find someone who, amazed by Chris's persistence and eagerness, gave him a chance at a brokerage firm. I made up my mind as a young guy. I wanted to become a world class at something. I just had to find out what that something was going to be. And the first time that I walked into a trading room, I knew, this is it. Things seemed to be going well, but this didn't last for too long. When Gardner arrived on his first day of work, the manager who had hired him had been fired, and no one else knew who he was, nor his new position. His expectations and dreams were immediately crushed. Now, most people would quit during that time, right? But Chris, tired of living a dull and poor life, chose not to abandon his dreams. Chris continued to search for an investment firm, all while working odd get low-paying jobs to pay the bills. After grueling months of no progress, he was able to secure an interview at Dean Witter Reynolds to train as a stockbroker. But once again, luck was not on his side, as he was jailed a little more than a week before his job interview for $1,200 in fines. He was in prison for 10 days, and when he was released, he discovered Jackie had fled with his son and all of his other belongings. His interview was scheduled the day after his release, but because he had nothing, literally nothing, when he came for the interview, Chris wore the same clothes he had worn while in prison, casual slacks, sneakers, and a jacket. He was undressed, and even Chris knew it. I showed up at Mr. Costello's front door, and he said exactly what I would have said to anyone who showed up at my front door in the morning dressed like that. Deliveries in the rear. I would have said the same thing. But I came right back at him and I explained everything. I could not think of a lie bizarre enough, so I told the truth. And it was the best thing I could have done. Turns out Mr. Costello had been married and divorced 3 times. He sympathized with me, and I got in as a trainee. Sometime later, as Chris was working and studying as a trainee, his ex-wife came back into his life, but not for what you imagined. One night I got a knock at the door, and you know who that is? It's my ex. And the conversation is brief and to the point. She says, "I can't do this anymore. Here, it's your turn." Chris faced some of the most difficult challenges of his life during this time, when he had to take care of his toddler son as a single parent. Gardner was scrambled to place his child in daycare, sleep where they can find safety, in his office after hours, motels, parks, airports, buses, and even in a locked bathroom at a BART station. But Gardner worked hard as a trainee, coming early and staying late, making over 200 calls a day. His perseverance paid off when he passed his 7 series exam in his first try and went from trainee to a full-time stockbroker. He went from Dean Witter to Bear Stearns, where his profits continued to rise until he earned his first $1 million in 1985. With the money he's got, Chris established his own brokerage firm in Chicago in 1987, Gardner Rich & Company. His company swiftly gained significant clients, including the Chicago Teachers Union Pension Fund. The firm has continued to grow since then, and he hasn't looked back. Chris Gardner was able to go from being a homeless man to being a multimillionaire by not allowing his past to hold him back and by sticking to his vision.
And your plan has got to have something I call the C5 complex. Your plan has got to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. You've got to have a plan.
Every successful person has a valuable lesson to offer through their experiences. They don't necessarily want to boast about their wealth, but instead they aim to inspire and influence others, just like Chris Gardner. The fame and glory they have now is something that they have worked hard for. They all failed in the beginning. They were all startups and successful people in the making. And in life, you must sometimes take risks because there are no guarantees to what the future holds. There will be ups and downs. There will be disappointments, rejections, and failures. And to make a decision, we take risks in life. It might seem scary or hopeless, but when you're stuck, try to ask yourself, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? When am I going to move forward? Let this be the trigger. Let this be the trigger to learn. And when you do, you'll be able to teach yourself, teach others, reinvent yourself, and you'll be able to help reinvent others. You'll be able to persevere. Now, you might not want to, but you have to, because it is your life, and its past and present only belongs to you. Chris calls it the C5 complex. You see, your plans in life need to be clear, concise, compelling, consistent, and committed. Your plans and plan must be something you're truly passionate about. So passionate that you will not strive for a plan B. Don't be satisfied with failure, but be persistent for success. Find something you love, find a will to keep you moving forward, and go for it. Whether it be a dream, a business, a test, a degree, or a family. Go for the pursuit of happiness. And just as Chris Gardner once said, don't ever let someone tell you you can't do something. Thanks for watching this video. How would you like to hear more motivational stories on a consistent basis? Do me a favor and support the channel by sharing, commenting below, and please make sure to like and hit that subscribe button to get the latest update. Soon you will be on your way to feeling inspired.